Hello friends, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be sitting down and talking about book series, which I think is going to be super exciting. So for the last month and a half, how this video kind of came to be in my mind, I mean, it's not an original idea. A ton of people have done this type of video before, but how I decided that I wanted to do it is because for the last month and a half, I have been in a pretty weird kind of book slump, not for a lack of wanting or trying to read books. I just haven't been absolutely in love with a book recently, and I've been really busy the last 2 months. I mean, it's summertime, so there's just a ton going on, and in my spare time I just think about how much I love my books and my series and everything. And I've also been buying a lot of books, and so I have a big backlog of a TBR, and with that I'm in the middle of a few series. One, because I just haven't gotten around to finishing them, and two, because they are uncompleted series, so I'm waiting for the author to release the rest of the books in the series. And I've just been thinking a lot about them, and I wanted to go over because there actually are about a handful of series that I do not plan on finishing, and then a few that I may or may not finish, and then there's actually a lot that I do plan on finishing, hence the large physical TBR. And I do have some of the series right over here beside me right now that I'm going to be talking about today, but I thought that this could be fun. We can go through this together, and you guys, if you guys are in the middle of any of these series or have completed them, have not, I would love to hear your thoughts about them down below in the comments afterwards. So okay, let's go ahead and get started. I thought we would get started kind of on the negative side of things, just because it is a shorter list of the series that I do not plan on finishing. And I would like to kind of put a disclaimer to this and say that these aren't horrible books. These are not horrible series. There are just specific reasons that they just didn't flow well with me. I just didn't really connect with them, or I just am not super interested in the plot enough to finish it. Nothing against the author or anything. There are so many books in this world that I really want to get to and want to read. I'm not going to waste my time reading things that I'm not 100% enjoying. And if I know I'm not going to enjoy it, I'm going to end up rating it a negative review anyway. So I'm just saving everybody the time and the effort here. Okay, let's get started. The first series that I'm going to be talking about today starts with A Fate Inked in Blood, and this is labeled as Saga of the Unfated series. This was the first book in that series. I believe the second book was released earlier this year, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a duology or a trilogy or beyond that, but I will not be finishing this book. I read it sometime last year for my book club, and I was really excited going into it because it's a Norse-inspired fantasy, and the cover looked gorgeous. I got the sprayed edged version, and it followed all that I remember, honestly, is that it follows Freya and Jorn, and I remember reading the entire thing thinking, what is the plot of this book, and what are we doing? I remember those were my only thoughts, because before I started this video, I went through my reviews of these books to see kind of what my thoughts were, and I didn't really have thoughts. I was kind of confused and felt that it was very that all the tropes were repeated and felt forced, and just things that I've read in other books before. It was nothing new or original to me. So I knew almost immediately that I probably was not going to be finishing this book. And then I remember going to book club, and all of us were kind of saying oh yeah, it was good, and saying the things that we did like. But as the discussions continued, we realized partway through that we were oh, maybe it wasn't that good. Maybe it wasn't as good as I remembered it being. And the longer that I sat on the book, the more I realized I just genuinely did not enjoy it. I think I ended up rating it a 3 stars, and now looking back on it, I probably would rate it a 2 stars. And I will not be finishing this series. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is the Throne of the Fallen book by Kerri Maniscalco, and this book is a part of the Prince of Sin series, and it was the first book in that series. I got this book kind of on a whim because I thought that the cover was absolutely gorgeous, which it is, and I did really enjoy the book. I rated it a 3.5 stars. I thought it was super fun and exciting and intriguing, and I do remember enjoying myself. I thought it was really quirky. I did think of few parts were a little kind of off the wall, maybe a little cringy, but I did overall enjoy it. It follows a girl named Camilla and the Prince of Envy and their story together, and how their relationship kind of develops and all the things that they need to go through and all the trials and whatnot. I enjoyed it. It follows them in the same universe as the Kingdom of the Wicked series. So this is I'm pretty sure Carrie Maniscalco plans on going through every single prince in these books, and she started with the Prince of Envy. I just didn't feel as connected or attached to the characters. I thought it was a fun one-off read for me because I did not read the Kingdom of the Wicked series, and so I thought it would be interesting to go into that and see how I felt about it. Maybe I would have felt more strongly about it if I read Kingdom of the Wicked, but I'm also not planning on reading that anytime soon. So I liked it for what it was, but I don't think I would be intrigued to continue reading every single story of every single prince in this universe. So that's kind of just the short story of why I do not plan on finishing this series. In my review, I put that it felt unoriginal and it really reminded me of ACOTAR, which I know that ACOTAR also takes a lot of inspiration from other fantasy novels as well. I just think that it just lacked originality, and I don't know, that was just kind of my thoughts. And I think it's hard in fantasy these days, especially when we have so many series that blow up like ACOTAR and Throne of Glass with Sarah J Maas and like Fourth Wing and stuff. And of course they take inspiration from other stories too, and like that's how kind of other authors and stories come about. It's never going to be wholly original these days, but I don't know, it just felt very like step by step, like it was very similar to me. And yeah, I guess that's it. I'm just not interested in finishing the rest of the series. It wasn't really for me. I guess that's short story. Long story short, it just wasn't really for me. Ooh, this next one is kind of crazy. I didn't think that I would not finish this series, but it is the Powerless trilogy by Lauren Roberts. There's a lot of controversy that goes along with this trilogy in this series, and I kind of fell into it, and it's just too much of a rabbit hole. I cannot get myself to finish the series. I really enjoyed Powerless the first time I read it. I think when I initially picked it up, I rated it a 5 stars. And then I sat on it for a while and I was like, okay, it was not a 5-star read for me. It was probably like a 4-star. I thought it was really good. Not original. Again, it definitely reminded me of the Hunger Games. I didn't read the Red Queen series, but I have watched my fair amount of TikTok videos about it. And yes, it's extremely similar to the Red Queen, and that kind of like turns me off from it because I'm like, if it is this similar to another story, like, and she talks about it in interviews, hey, don't bring me into it, but that's kind of wild to me. I liked Powerless. I liked the novella Powerful. I thought that was a really heartwarming story. It did lack a little bit more of the depth that I was looking for. I rated that also a 4-star, but it was good. And then I read Reckless, and that just really like pinned the nail in the coffin for me because it wasn't good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was not good. I think I rated it at 2.75 stars, and I really didn't like it. It was just a cat and mouse game the entire book, completely predictable. The same thing happened maybe 4 times in a row. My theory is that it was supposed to be a duology, and then when she got published and Powerless blew up, then everyone was like, oh, make it a trilogy. And so she extended it so that she could get more releases, more whatever, and it wasn't good. I'm like, this could have also been a novella, or it could have been a duology, straight up, just could have been a duology. And then Fearless came out, and I saw reviews for it that were pretty positive, but I just was not interested after Reckless for picking up another book in this series, especially with how Reckless ended. I was kind of intrigued, but also really annoyed. So I ended up reading a spoiler review of the book, and I don't get it. I don't like it. I didn't like what the story was, I don't know. I just didn't like the spoiler review that I read, and so I will not be finishing this series. I did really like Powerless and Powerful, but as the series continued and the more that I found out about the potential copying of other stories, and I mean, not even potential, it's just like actually right out there in front of you, I just couldn't get myself to continue supporting that, so I will not be finishing the Powerless trilogy. The next series that I do not plan on finishing is kind of actually up in the air, maybe as a maybe, but as of right now I have no plans on finishing it, which is interesting because I rated it like a 5-star series. It is the Red Rising trilogy. I rated Red Rising 4.5 stars. I rated Golden Sun a 4.5 stars, and I rated Morning Star a 5-star. That book was so good. This is a sci-fi fantasy book that follows Darrow as a red, and what it means to be a red is that you are lower class ranked in the society that they live in, and this is in the far, far future when Earth does not sustain life for humanity anymore, and so they are living on Mars and they're trying to uncover the surface so that future generations can live and prosper on this land. That's what Darrow thinks his main mission has been his entire life. That's what he's been working for. He is a fantastic red at what he does, but he soon discovers very early on into the book that he's been lied to and that this isn't true, and that they have discovered the above ground many, many years ago, and that people are prospering up there, but he's still down below for some reason doing the dirty work, and he gets pissed off. And I am not going to spoil anything else for the rest of the series. It is a very dense series. It's very much sci-fi, but Pierce Brown does a beautiful job weaving in this plot and politics and just imagining the world around you and building this story. And there's so many complicated relationships and things that happen and plot twists and turns, and it's devastating, and there's romance, but there's also a lot of humor. Like, it's really funny too throughout the book, and it kind of feels like Hunger Games. Like, there's a trial of sorts that happens, and it's a lot, but it is so beautifully done. I finished the initial first 3 books in the trilogy. Why I say I'm not going to finish the series is because there's an additional 3 or 4 books out now that is in the future. So it's beyond what happens after Morning Star. It's its own new trilogy of sorts, in the same world, just the characters that we were left off with in Morning Star, what their lives are like, I think like 10 or so years in the future. And I think the reason that I am not interested right now in starting or finishing this, additional series or trilogy is because it just took me a really long time to get through Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. Like I said, it's a very dense read, and it took a lot of brain power for me because it's a lot. And I just don't know with how many other books and series that I want to get into if I have the mental capacity to also be going back into the Red Rising world. Because something else too is that I had to read Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star pretty back to back, or I would forget really quickly a lot of stuff that happened because there's just so much packed into the books. So I fear that if I were to start the new trilogy now, I would be really confused on the world because there's so much world building in the first 3. I'm not sure if Pierce Brown does it again in the additional books. So I would probably have to watch a YouTube video of somebody explaining all of it to me again, because I know, I remember obviously the big moments that happen, but I fear that I have completely lost the plot on a lot of the small things that happened as well. So for now, this is put on the back burner. I do not plan on finishing the Red Rising series. However, I highly recommend it to any of you that are interested in sci-fi fantasy. This is a beautifully written series. Okay, the next series that I do not plan on finishing is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This book was good. I read it a couple of years ago, maybe 2022, and I rated it a 4-star. I'm not a super big thriller mystery person, which is interesting because I do love watching thriller mystery movies, but when it comes to reading them, I'm only ever interested in reading this genre during the fall time. So it kind of makes sense that I just don't feel gravitated towards finishing it in the first place, but I really liked it for what it was, and I thought that the story for me was just fine ending there. There was no cliffhanger. It just follows a housemaid, this girl that goes and essentially is a housemaid for this couple and their daughter. I believe their names are Andrew and Nina, and just a lot of weird, creepy things happen. There's plot twists and turns. It's a very classic Freida McFadden mystery thriller, and I liked it. I thought it was good. It was a little corny, cringy at times, but I feel like that's kind of the best part about reading thriller mysteries like this, and I liked it, but I think there's 3 additional books in this series. And I heard, and just from what I've read online about people's reviews and the synopsis of each of these books, is that it's kind of the same thing, just a little bit different, a little bit of a different plot twist, but it's in the same world with the same character, the same girl, and I'm how many times can this happen? I mean, I could be completely off base right now, and this could have been done differently than what I've just read online, but I don't know, like how many times can we do the same thing? I think if I'm going to go pick up another thriller mystery, it's going to be a completely different author and storyline, if that makes sense. I am interested in picking up more Frida McFadden books, but again, it's just not the genre that I gravitate towards, so I'm just not going to take more time out of my reading time to be reading about the same story, same character in this setting. And then the last book that I have on this list of series that I do not plan on finishing is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. Now, Firefly Lane is a 5-star read for me. This book is beautiful. It goes through decades of a friendship and there's romance woven into it, but I mean, to me, the main part of this story is the friendship between the two main female characters and just the trials and tribulations that they go through in their lives from childhood to adulthood and beyond. And it's just absolutely beautiful, stunning. One of my favorite reads so far. I didn't realize when I finished it that there was a second book in this kind of duology, and no one really talks about it, but it's called Fly Away. And it follows the events of these characters' lives after the ending of Firefly Lane. And I'm just not interested in reading it. I think it was beautiful for what it was, and I am perfectly fine with leaving off the story at where it ended in Firefly Lane. I'm sure it's a beautiful book, but with everything that happened in Firefly Lane with the first book, I'm okay with how it ended, and I'm not really interested in following these characters in the second book, Fly Away. I mean, maybe somebody could change my mind. I just don't really see anyone talking about it. I personally don't think it's really necessary to continue on. I think maybe there are really good moments in Fly Away just because I know that there are still struggles and things that these characters are going through that definitely could be more sealed up in a tight bow. I just think it's a lot of hard topics that are dealt with, and I'm just fine with leaving off Firefly Lane. I thought it was beautifully written, and I don't want to ruin any of the characters or anything for me in my mind of how the world is. I'm content. So that is a series I will also not be finishing. Now I'm going to be getting into, I have 2 books on this list, and they are my maybe list. They are books that are in a series that I feel like I could finish the series. I'm just really not too sure yet. And I'm going to start it off with the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent with the book The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. I read this earlier this year and I ended up rating it a 2.75 stars. The reason this is on the maybe list for me is because that was really disappointing for me. I read the first books of the Crowns of Nyaxia series, which is The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, I believe is what it's called. Absolutely loved those books a couple of years ago, rated them 4.5, 5 stars. There was also a novella that was in that I rated a 5 stars. It was beautifully done. I love this series. It is a vampire fantasy series, and it's a romantasy. So it has the romance, the fantasy. It also has trials too, kind of like the Hunger Games. So I guess maybe that's one of the things that I like about fantasy, because so many of the books I read have that in them. But it was everything that I wanted and more. And so I was really excited to get into The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, because this follows Mish, who is the best friend of Rain, the main male character in Serpent and the Wings of Night. And yeah, Mish is his girl best friend, and she just was like, had such a wonderful presence in the first 3 books, and I loved her character so much. But I was really disappointed reading this first book in her series. It just did not feel like her character from the first 3 books that I got to know her from. I was really confused by the plot. The descriptions were really rough. I'm very big on imagining the world that I'm in when I'm reading, and that's one of my favorite parts about reading, is that I can immerse myself into the world. And I think what really threw me off was I couldn't. Like, the descriptions really threw me off. I could not imagine where we were in the story, and I think it was really important because we're supposed to be going through levels of hell, and I could not. Oh my god, the lighting just got really bad. And I couldn't imagine it. I didn't know where we were, when we were there, how we got there. I also kind of lost the plot of the book. I actually don't remember why we were doing what we were doing. Like, that's just how lost I was. And I know this is going to be a duology. I believe the second book comes out this next month in August. So it's on the maybe list because I'm willing to give it another try. I think the way that it ended was good. I liked the ending of the book, but it took me a while to get there. So I don't know. I love Carissa Broadbent. I love all of her other books. This is the only one that's ever been a low rating for me, which is why it's on the maybe list. I probably won't read it right away, the next book, but I might give it a chance. So that is a maybe for me. The next book that is on the maybe list for me is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker. And I rated this a 3.75 stars, and I actually might bump this up into my list of series that I won't be finishing, because if you have seen this book before, it is a gigantic book. It is very long, and I enjoyed myself. I think I remember for the most part while reading it, but as I was reading the synopsis of this before the video and trying to gather my thoughts from my review, I do not remember at all what happened in this book or what it was about I don't remember anything. It did not leave an impression on me, and the only thing I really have in my review is that I was disappointed from the hype, and I did not like the female main character. Like, that's all I really said. So I put this as a maybe because I think my intentions were that I would come back to the second book, because I didn't absolutely hate the first one, but I think I don't know. I don't remember what happened. I might also have to put this into the list of series I won't be finishing. I have no idea. I think that's why I have the maybe pile though. This will stay in the maybe pile. I'm so sorry. I don't remember what happened in this book. It was not memorable to me. All I know is that it's part of the Moonfall series, and I believe it was supposed to be a duology. And I think the second book comes out this year, if it hasn't already. Yeah, nothing's coming to me. I really don't remember what this book was about, which is really sad. I do like the covers, if that is anything. I mean, from my review, it didn't seem like I absolutely hated it. I just liked the other characters' point of views more than I liked the female main character, which I do remember there were obviously a lot more chapters from her perspective, so I think I just got very annoyed and frustrated with her and her actions, but I genuinely can't remember. I can't remember what was happening in this book. Okay, now let's talk about the series that I do plan on finishing, which is so exciting. So the first two series, I'll just kind of combine them together, that I plan on finishing. I feel like they don't need any type of description or introduction because it's pretty straightforward to me, but it will be the ACOTAR series and the Crescent City series, both by Sarah J. Maas. I do plan on finishing these. We just got kind of a little snippet the other day. Sarah J. Maas finished the draft for ACOTAR 6, which I'm so excited about. I know that these are not everyone's cup of tea in terms of fantasy series. I am just so invested in the characters and the story, and I will be seeing it through. I absolutely love the ACOTAR series, Throne of Glass series, and maybe an unpopular opinion, I love the Crescent City series. I just think they're so fun. I don't take myself serious when I read these books. I just think it's fun. I didn't really enjoy the third Crescent City book. It was disappointing, but I had a good time. It's just fun to me. I mean, it's a modern fantasy, but you gotta have it somewhere. You can't have a banger every time, you know? It can't be Throne of Glass through and through. Like, that would be boring. So I plan on finishing these series whenever she decides to release the next book. Hopefully beginning of next year is what I'm thinking. I would love for it to be this year, but we're already into July, almost August, and so I don't have my hopes up for that because I think she just finished the draft. I don't think she's any further than that, so we'll see. But I do plan on finishing these series for sure. The next series that I also plan on finishing is the Boys of Tommen series. This follows a found family group of friends. They are teenagers that live in Ireland, and it's really just character based. It's not a lot of plot based storylines that happen. It's just about these couples and how they get together and all of the honestly trauma that they have to go through in their lives to find their happily ever after. I actually just finished Releasing 10, which was Chloe Walsh's newest release in this series, and I was not impressed. I didn't love it. It was my lowest rated book in the series by her so far. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's on my Goodreads if you want to go read it. There are a few spoilers in there. I don't really want to get into it right now because it's kind of a lot, but I do plan on finishing the series. I feel like I'm this far into the books now and the stories that I have to like see it through and see how these characters end up. And I am interested. I am very entertained and intrigued with the storylines. I am invested in these characters. I want to see them have a happy ever after, even though it pains me sometimes, the weird, cringy things that happen in these books. There are parts I have to skim through because it's a lot. It's a lot. So I would definitely recommend reading any and all trigger warnings for this series if you have not started it and plan on going into it. There is a lot that happens that can be very triggering for a lot of people. So that's all I have to say about that. But I do plan on finishing it. So whenever Chloe Walsh you want to release Claiming 10, that would be fine by me, please. I also plan on finishing the An Ember in the Ashes series. I have the 4th and final book on my nightstand right now. It will be one of the next books that I pick up now that I have finished my most recent read, and I'm so excited, but I'm also nervous. I need to pick it up before I completely forget, you know, like what happened at the end of the 3rd book, but this series has been absolutely wonderful. It is a YA fantasy series. We mainly follow Elias and Leia, and they are on completely opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to living under the Marshall Empire and their rule. So Elias definitely has the privilege. He is a part of the Marshall Empire. Leia is a scholar, and they somehow stumble upon each other. I do not want to spoil any of it at all. I have said this in probably about 4 other videos at this point, but there are so many plot twists and turns that happen in this series that it is just such a fun experience to be a part of, like reading it for the first time as a reader. And if you're interested, please, I highly recommend reading it. There are probably a good amount of trigger warnings that I would recommend reading about before starting it, because even though it's a YA series, it is very descriptive and there are a lot of intense things that happen, but it's also why I really like it. It's very action-packed. There is some romance. There's so many different relationship dynamics that are happening that are just so lovely to watch unfold, but also heartbreaking at other times too. It's a very bittersweet series, and I think that's why I've been kind of holding off on finishing it, because I know that after this book it's done, and I'm a little like anxious going into it, thinking of how our characters can end up, because Sabaa Tahir has not been the most kind to some of these characters at times. They go through it, guys, and it's heartbreaking, but also just so wonderfully written. So I will be finishing the series here shortly. I also plan on finishing the Priory of the Orange Tree series, which is also known as the Roots of Chaos series. I went into this book not knowing that there were other books in the series already. I read Priory of the Orange Tree thinking this is going to be such an accomplishment because it's literally just the most gigantic book I've ever seen or held in my entire life. Finished it, was so proud of myself. It was one of the first like high fantasy books that I ever finished and fully like understood. And then I realized that there was a prequel that had come out after the Priory, and I was like, well, now I have to read it, because I rated Priory a 5-star read. I was like, I have to read the prequel, so I read the prequel. I loved it. It was also a 5-star read. And then I just saw that the author Samantha Shannon announced that there's going to be another book in this series, which is wonderful. They're just so long. And I read this series in 2023, maybe 2024. So I'm gonna need to also have a refresher. I don't plan on rereading them because again, they're really long, but I remember again, the big moments that happen, but there's so much in between, so many little moments that happen, so many characters that we follow. I can't even count maybe how many characters we follow. There are so many, but I remember loving every single one of them, and it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful fantasy story. And so I will be finishing this series. I think the next book comes out in a couple of months, so I really actually have to prepare myself. I need to watch all the YouTube videos and TikToks of explaining the plot and what I need to remember and know about it. But so the Priory of the Orange Tree follows a world that is being threatened by the return of a dragon that they refer to as the Nameless One. It is an ancient evil, and the Nameless One has many other dragons that are threatening to take over this world. And so there's a long-awaited return, long-winded, a lot of history, a lot of animosity between the people that are currently a part of this world and the Nameless One and the dragons. And so hence the prequel explains like all of the history of it and dives way more into depth of what was happening during that time when they first initially kind of battled it out, you know. But the Priory of the Orange Tree is this current timeline of them figuring out what the hell they need to do if this Nameless One does come back. So with that, it follows a lot of key characters that are at different parts of the world and different parts of life, have different religious views on the Nameless One, and like kind of how this affects them and their every day-to-day life, and how they kind of start to work together to fight against what the Nameless One could do if they were to come back, and how they can kind of prevent it, fight against it, you name it. They really have no idea what to do because this hasn't happened to them in their lifetime. I think it's so good because it follows so many different religious beliefs, and you really dive into these characters' point of views, and you become so invested, and you like really truly understand why they feel the way they do about so many things. And there's so much political divide, religious divide. It is so much packed into one, and it's fantasy, but it was everything to me. I think even the relationships were so beautiful. I cried reading this book. Pretty sure I cried reading the prequel, A Day of Fallen Night. I cried reading both of them because just the story in general with all of their relationships, but specifically like the romantic ones, beautiful. Beautifully done. But if you want global conflict where women are better than men, this is your book. This is your series, and I'm gonna finish it. I just looked it up. It is called, the next book in the series is called Among the Burning Flowers. It is titled as Point 5, which means it should be between A Day of Fallen Night and Priory of the Orange Tree. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the in-between these two books. That's so exciting. Also, if you guys have not seen the covers, I know I talk a lot about covers here, but the covers are absolutely stunning, and I need this book. It is expected to release September 16th, 2025, so you know where I will be. The next series that I do plan on finishing as well is Fourth Wing. I really, really liked the first book. Second book was not my cup of tea, Iron Flame. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Fourth Wing. It kind of like lost the plot for me. I think I felt the same way that I did with Reckless, where it just felt like a lot of the same things happening over and over again, and we weren't really progressing in the plot the way that I thought we were going to. I also believe this book was the series was supposed to be a trilogy, and it got extended into a 5-book series, so I think it's very similar. Similar things happened in the book community where Fourth Wing blew up, and hence, you know, them getting a longer contract and whatnot, which is perfectly fine, like good for Rebecca Yarros. But I don't know. I think also with Onyx Storm, I was a bit disappointed. I really did like it. I just think that the ending pissed me off. The ending made me so upset, and not in a good way. It was literally just like the exact same ending as Iron Flame, and I'm like, why did we do all of that? Why did I read all of that just for it to end up the exact same way that Iron Flame did? So I will begrudgingly be finishing this series because I'm invested in the characters themselves. I do love a good dragon fantasy, and I need to know where we're going, and there's so many plot holes right now and so many things that are very mysterious, and I need to understand and have everything fully explained to me in this world, because Rebecca Yarros has done a good job at making me very interested in this, and I need to see what happens, what everything has meant so far. It all needs to come full circle for me, so I will be finishing the Fourth Wing series, which I believe is called the Empyrean series. And then very briefly, I will be also finishing the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've already read the first 2 books in the series, and I am moving on to the 3rd one now, here shortly, I believe. But this is just kind of like a fun little fantasy read that I've been diving into. I really wanted to experience reading it and then watching the movies, and so I finished the 2nd book. We're still planning the time to watch the 2nd movie because I think the movies are just so fun, so beautifully shot, and yeah, I'm just having a fun time with it. I really, you know, wanted to experience a very classic fantasy book now that I have really dove into fantasy as a genre, you know, and just as a reader wanting to experience like where a lot of fantasy books get their inspiration from. And it takes me a minute to get into it. It's also very dense, and so there's just a lot that happens, and it gets really repetitive, and there's like, you know, certain scenes where there's so much description happening because it's, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien, and he's creating this wonderful world, but the descriptions go on for so long that sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, we've been describing the lay of the land for like 3 pages now, like holy hell. But it's very good. I've rated each of the books 4 stars so far, so we'll see how it ends up. I'm really excited to kind of wrap it all up and see. I actually don't know how it ends. I do not know how The Lord of the Rings ends, so I'm excited to get into it. I've read The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and now I'll be on The Return of the King. And what I did with the second book, The Two Towers, that I plan on doing with The Return of the King is reading it while also listening to the audiobook on Libby, so that I kind of stay engaged with it and don't get so bored through all of the long descriptions, just because it kind of does take a toll on you after a while. But that is a series that I also plan on finishing that I've been thoroughly enjoying so far. Okay, the next series that I do plan on finishing as well is the Broken Blades trilogy by Mai Corland, and this is a wonderful fantasy series that is so mysterious, plot twisty turns. It very much reminds me of the Six of Crows trilogy because it is a found family. They are on this journey together in the first book to kill the king, and they're all brought together under these weird, odd circumstances, but they all kind of have little ties to each other that you develop or that you uncover throughout in the series. And I've read the first 2. I've read 5 Broken Blades and 4 Ruined Realms, which I have rated, I'm pretty sure both of them 5 stars, and the third book comes out on Tuesday, which I am so excited about. It is called 3 Shattered Souls, and I'm just so excited about it. It's, like I said, it reminds me of the Six of Crows with the found family and the kids coming together to, you know, go on this heist. It's very much like that. I don't think anything will ever be exactly like Six of Crows for me because I love that series so much, that duology, but it's very similar in that way, and it really keeps me on my toes, and I'm just so excited to finish it. And again, with this series, there are a lot of plot holes, a lot of mysterious things happening, and I really need to uncover all of it and understand like who's lying, because that's a big thing too, is that there's always somebody that is lying in the group, somebody that's hiding something. And I think in the first book specifically, it kind of took me for a loop. I did not realize who the liar was, and when I did, I was like, oh, okay. Like, he really did throw me off, but it all made sense. It wasn't like one of those instances where I was like, really? Like, that doesn't really make sense. But when I read back on it, I was like, yeah, I think it lacks a little bit of the depth and the wow factor that Six of Crows, I'm just comparing it because they're so easy to compare, but like, it definitely lacks a little bit of like depth and wow factor, even though there are a ton of plot twists and turns, which is why it's not, I'm just kind of here for the vibes. I'm here for the entertainment of it all. That's why I rated it 5 stars. It's not like the best fantasy series I've ever read, but I am very much invested. And I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy. I'm pretty sure there's going to be 5 books because we've been counting down so far from 5, 4 to 3 in the names of the titles of the books. So I'm anticipating 5 books. I think I might, you know, I should have maybe done a little bit more research, but I'm enjoying it. I'm going to read it until it ends. That's a series that I do plan on finishing. Okay, the last 2 books that I have on my list of series that I do plan on finishing are Romance Interconnected series, and the first one is the Skyline series, which is written by Kennedy Ryan, and I did read the first book, which is Before I Let Go, which follows Yasmin and Josiah, and I absolutely devoured and loved this book. There were aspects of it that were not my favorite with the plot, and I don't want to give it away because it kind of happens like in the middle towards the end of the book, you know, and I'm just kind of like ugh about it. But I rated it at 4.5 stars, and I thought it was such a beautiful, realistic idea of what it looks like to be a couple that has been together for so long. They're on, you know, they're not on good terms when you start off the book. They had this epic love story when they first met, and now they have 2 kids together, but they're not together. Like, in the book, you follow them on their journey of refinding and rekindling their love, but in the beginning, they're divorced. They're not together. It's very heartbreaking and hard to read about, but I love the reality of it. I really admired how just realistic it was of what they went through. And also, please, if you have not read this series, check trigger warnings before going into it, because there are a lot of sensitive topics that are talked about, because this was not easy for either of the characters. They go through a lot to end up where they have to be to get together. There's a lot of reflection that happens on past trauma that happened to them that they had to experience together. And something that I really enjoyed about this story was also the two best friends that Yasmin finds throughout her journey of healing, and that's who we get to follow in the upcoming books in the series with This Could Be Us and Can't Get Enough. So I will be finishing the series just to get their stories too, because they also deserve a happily ever after, and I'm so excited. Okay, and then last but not least, I also plan on finishing the Heartstring series by BK Borison. This started off with First Time Caller, and I knew immediately I had to pick up this book when she announced its release. One, the cover, insane. Two, I am obsessed with the Lovelight Farm series by BK Borison. All interconnected romances, genuinely just the most fun reads during the holidays, but I hold a special place in my heart for that series, and so I was like, I have to read her new romance series, and it was so good. I rated First Time Caller 5 stars, and she then announced that it was also going to be a trilogy of an interconnected romance series as well, and we are going to be following one of the friends that works at the radio station that Aiden works at in First Time Caller. His name is Jackson. We will be getting his story next, and something that's super fun, a little anecdote that she has put into this series, is that First Time Caller was loosely inspired and based off of Sleepless in Seattle, and for Jackson's book, it will be loosely inspired based off of When Harry Met Sally. I, however, have not watched either of those movies. I know probably Criminal because I love a good rom-com, but I trust her. I believe her. I absolutely loved it, and I'm so excited. We have not gotten the name of the third book yet. I'm assuming she'll wait until Jackson's book is released, but his book is called And Now, Back to You. And I'm so excited, and we got to see the cover also, and it's this lovely blue, and I'm just a sucker for these rom-coms, especially ones that are written by BK Borison, so 100% will absolutely be reading and finishing this series as well. That is all I had for today in terms of talking about series. Obviously, I've read a ton of series so far. I feel like they're just kind of my most favorite things to dive into because I love getting to know characters more in depth and to enter this world, whether it's an interconnected series or just a flat out, you know, fantasy series. I love reading them, and I wanted to talk about them today. I didn't get into every single series that I've ever read because a lot of them I've just already completed, so there was no reason to talk about them today, but I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you have any comments or anything, like if you need me to finish one of the series that I put on my do not finish list, try to convince me why, maybe. And if you're also into finishing some of the series that I had on my want to finish list as well, let me know. But thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.